Maya Chen's reflection stared back at her from the polished marble floor of Westfield Academy of Music. Her hands gripped the worn handle of a mop, calluses hidden beneath rubber gloves. Around her, students hurried through the atrium, instrument. Cases swinging, laughter echoing off the vaulted ceiling. Nobody noticed the small woman in grey coveralls cleaning up their spilled coffee. "Did you hear about the scholarship competition?" A girl with perfect blonde curls breezed past. "Professor Hargrove is judging. He hasn't taken a new student in 3 years." "My father called in a favor," her companion replied, tossing her empty cup toward the trash. It missed, rolling across the freshly mopped floor. Maya's jaw tightened as she retrieved the cup. At 24, she was barely older than these students, but the gulf between them felt immeasurable. "Excuse me." A deep voice cut through her thoughts. She turned to find herself face to face with Professor Victor Hargrove himself. Tall and imposing, with silver-streaked hair and piercing eyes, he was legendary in classical music circles. "The practice room in the West Corridor needs attention," he said, not quite looking at her. "There's been a mishap with someone's." "Coffee?" "Right away, sir," Maya replied. He nodded absently, already scanning a sheet of music as he walked away. Maya wheeled her cleaning cart toward the West Corridor, passing practice room after practice room. Through the windows, she glimpsed students hunched over instruments, faces twisted in concentration. Her fingers twitched at her sides. The mess in the West Corridor practice room was substantial. Coffee splattered across the floor, and a stack of sheet music soaked beyond saving. But it wasn't the mess that made Maya freeze in the doorway. It was the piano, a magnificent Steinway grand, gleaming black under the lights, lid propped open like a raven's wing. Maya glanced over her shoulder. The corridor was empty. She sat down. Her mop approached the bench, sat. Her fingertips hovered above the keys, not quite touching. She hadn't felt ivory beneath her hands in months, not since her father's accident had forced her to drop out of community college and take this job. To pay his medical bills, just one moment, she promised herself. One moment of remembering. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The first incident occurred 3 days later. Maya was emptying trash bins in the faculty lounge when the conversation caught her attention. Applications for the Hargrove. "Scholarship close tomorrow," Dean Winters was saying. "We've got some exceptional candidates this year." "Anyone stand out?" asked another professor. "Abigail Sinclair is front-runner," replied Professor Hargrove. "Her technique is impeccable." Maya lingered, pretending to wipe down a table. "What about that Chen girl?" Dean Winters asked. "I heard her recording. Quite extraordinary for someone with no formal training." Maya's heart stopped. She'd recorded herself playing in that empty practice room using her phone propped against a music stand. A personal recording never meant for anyone else. "Ah, yes," Hargrove's voice cooled noticeably. "The janitor's daughter." "Custodial staff," Dean Winters corrected gently. "And she's quite talented." "Talent without proper training is like uncut diamond," Hargrove replied. "Potentially valuable, but ultimately worthless without refinement. Besides, the scholarship is intended for serious candidates, not hobbyists." Maya's cheeks burned. She abandoned her pretense of cleaning and hurried out, nearly colliding with a student in the doorway. "Watch it," the girl snapped, then called over her shoulder. "Daddy, the help almost knocked me over." Maya recognized Abigail Sinclair's perfect features just as Professor Hargrove appeared in the doorway. "Perhaps concentrate on your job rather than eavesdropping," he suggested coldly. "And stay out of the practice rooms. Those pianos are valuable." "Instruments, not toys." Maya's throat constricted. "I'm sorry, sir, it won't happen again." She fled down the corridor, humiliation burning in her chest. The second incident was more public. Maya was mopping the conservatory's main performance hall. When students began filing in for masterclass, she quickened her pace, trying to finish before the session began. "You," Professor Hargrove called from the stage. "We're about to begin. You'll have to come back later." "Almost finished, sir," Maya replied, keeping her head down. "Now, please," he insisted. "We can't have distractions." Students were settling into their seats, many smirking at her discomfort. "Of course," Maya murmured, gathering her supplies. As she reached the exit, she heard Abigail's voice deliberately loud. "I heard she was caught playing the Steinway in practice room 7. Can you imagine? like letting a child bang on priceless artwork. Laughter rippled through the hall. Maya's hand tightened on the mop handle. She turned slowly. "I wasn't banging on it," she said quietly. "I was playing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. The laughter died instantly. Professor Hargrove raised an eyebrow. "Were you indeed? Perhaps you'd care to demonstrate." It was clearly meant as mockery, but something in Maya snapped. "I would, actually." Gasps and titters swept through the audience. "This is a masterclass for serious piano students," Hargrove replied coldly. "Not an open mic night." "I understand," Maya said, turning to leave. "She's scared," Abigail stage whispered. "Probably can't even play chopsticks." Maya stopped, one hand on the door. "Miss Chen," Dean Winters called from the back of the hall, "I'd actually be quite interested in hearing you play." Professor Hargrove's jaw tightened visibly, but he gestured to the piano with exaggerated courtesy. "By all means." Maya walked slowly to the stage, hyper-aware of her grey coveralls, her sensible shoes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She sat at the piano, adjusting the bench. Her hands were shaking. She placed them on the keys and froze. The silence stretched, excruciating. Someone snickered. "Perhaps another time," Professor Hargrove suggested, satisfaction evident in his tone. Maya stood abruptly, face burning, and fled the hall. The third incident came a week later, during preparations for the scholarship competition. Maya was cleaning the massive windows in the atrium when she overheard Abigail speaking to a group of admirers. "Daddy made a substantial donation to the new Performing Arts Center," she was saying. "Professor Hargrove practically guaranteed me the scholarship." "Isn't there supposed to be an actual competition?" asked a boy with thick glasses. Abigail waved, dismissively. "A formality. No one else comes close to my level." "What about that janitor who tried to play at master class?" someone asked. "Please," Abigail laughed. She couldn't even handle performance pressure in front of students. Imagine her freezing on stage at the actual competition. Maya pressed her lips together, scrubbing harder at a non-existent smudge. "I heard her playing once," said a quiet voice. "She was actually really good." "Of course you'd say that, Kim," Abigail rolled her eyes. "You think everyone has hidden potential. I'm just saying, what, that some untrained nobody might outplay me, after 12 years of the finest instruction money can buy." Abigail's voice rose sharply. "Let's settle this right now." She stalked toward Maya, who pretended not to notice. "You," Abigail called. "Window girl." Maya turned slowly. "Can I help you?" "We have a little bet going," Abigail said sweetly. "Some people think you might actually have talent. Care to prove them right? The atrium piano is right there." Students were gathering, drawn by the confrontation. "I'm working," Maya replied. "Afraid?" Abigail taunted. "I would be too, in your position." "Abigail, stop," Kim protested. "This isn't necessary." "No, it's fine," Maya said quietly, setting down her cleaning supplies. "I don't mind playing." She walked to the atrium's baby grand, aware of phones being raised to record her humiliation. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Music isn't about showing off, it's about letting your soul speak through your fingers." She sat at the piano, closed her eyes, and began to play. The opening notes of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor filled the atrium, delicate at first, then building with controlled intensity, her fingers dancing across the keys with precision and passion. The chatter died instantly. Maya was no longer in the atrium. She was 7 years old again, watching. Her father, the custodian at a private music school in Shanghai, sneaked her into practice rooms after hours. She was 12, spending every spare moment at the donated upright piano in their tiny apartment. She was 19, earning a partial scholarship to community college music program before life intervened. She played with technical brilliance. Yes, but what silenced the crowd was something else entirely. Raw emotion pouring through every note, storytelling through music. The piece grew more complex, demanding virtuosic skill. Maya's hands flew across the keyboard, her body swaying with the music. The final passages approached, thunderous, triumphant, then resolving into delicate introspection before the powerful conclusion. When the final note faded, the atrium was absolutely silent. Maya opened her eyes to find dozens of stunned faces staring back at her. Professor Hargrove stood at the entrance, his expression unreadable. Dean Winters beside him smiling broadly, and Abigail, face drained of color, hands clenched at her sides. "Well," Dean Winters broke the silence, striding forward. "I believe we just found our dark horse candidate for the scholarship competition." "She's not enrolled," Abigail protested, voice strangled. "Actually," the dean replied, "Miss Chen submitted an application last week. Quite impressive, including a recording that somehow found its way to my email." Maya's eyes widened. She hadn't submitted anything. "I don't recall approving any such application," Professor Hargrove said stiffly. "The committee approved it," Dean Winters countered. "Unanimously, I might add." "She works here," Abigail insisted, growing desperate. "That's a conflict of interest." "Miss Chen," the dean addressed her directly, "would you be willing to take a leave of absence from your custodial duties to participate in the competition?" Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. I would, but I need the income, my father's medical bills." "A stipend is provided to all finalists," he interrupted smoothly, "equal to your current salary." Whispers erupted around them. Abigail's face flushed deep red. "This is irregular," Professor Hargrove objected. "So is dismissing extraordinary talent based on employment status," Dean Winters replied firmly. "Miss Chen will compete, unless you'd prefer I discuss the matter with the board?" Hargrove's jaw tightened. "Fine, but she'll receive no special treatment." "I would expect nothing less," Maya said quietly, meeting his gaze for the first time. As the crowd dispersed, Kim approached her shyly. "That was amazing. I've never heard anyone play like that." "Thank you," Maya replied, still dazed by the turn. "Of events, you should know," Kim whispered. "I'm the one who sent your recording to the dean. I heard you playing late one night when I was practicing. I hope you're not angry." Maya looked at the young woman, the first person at Westfield who had actually seen her. "Not angry," she said, offering a tentative smile. "Terrified but not angry." The night of the competition arrived with brutal swiftness. Maya stood backstage in a simple black dress borrowed from Kim, hands trembling. Through the curtain, she could hear the magnificent performance of the contestant before her. Abigail Sinclair playing Liszt's La Campanella with technical perfection. Nervous? Professor Hargrove appeared beside her, voice cool. "Yes," she admitted. "You should be," he replied. "Raw talent only takes one so far. In the end, proper training and pedigree separate the merely good from the truly great." Maya met his gaze steadily. "My father taught me that music isn't about being better than everyone else. It's about connecting souls through sound." "Your father, the janitor." "My father, the concert pianist," Maya corrected quietly. "Before his hands were damaged in the factory accident that brought us to America." Something flickered in Hargrove's expression. Surprise, perhaps even the beginning of respect, but applause erupted from the auditorium, cutting their conversation. Short Abigail swept backstage, flushed with triumph. She didn't acknowledge Maya, but her confident smile spoke volumes. And now, the announcer's voice rang out, "Our final contestant, Maya Chen, performing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, First Movement." Maya stepped onto the stage, blinking in the harsh lights. The auditorium was packed. Students, faculty, and community members filling every seat. At the center of the front row sat Professor Hargrove, expression inscrutable. Beside him, Dean Winters gave her an encouraging nod. She approached the piano, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands on the keys. For a terrifying moment, she thought she might freeze again. Then she caught sight of a familiar figure slipping in through a side door. Her father, leaning on his cane, pride shining in his eyes. She began to play. The opening chords of Rachmaninoff's masterpiece filled the hall, dark, resonant, building in intensity. Maya's hands moved with absolute certainty now, no trace of earlier trembling. The piece demanded everything: technical brilliance, physical stamina, emotional depth, and she gave it all. She played not just with her hands, but with her entire being, each phrase telling the story of struggle, perseverance, and ultimately, transcendence. When the orchestra would normally enter, Maya seamlessly incorporated those parts into her performance, creating a complete musical landscape. The audience was utterly still. Even Professor Hargrove had leaned forward, his composed facade slipping as the music transported him. The final minutes of the movement approached, passionate, triumphant, soaring. Maya's fingers flew across the keyboard with impossible speed and precision, building to the thunderous conclusion. When she struck the final chord, she was trembling, tears streaming down her face. For one terrible second, there was silence. Then, the audience erupted, not just applause but a standing ovation, cheers and gasps and exclamations of disbelief. Dean Winters was on his feet, beaming. Even Abigail, despite herself, looked stunned. And Professor Hargrove, the man who had dismissed her, belittled her, refused to see her, was standing, his face transformed by the universal language that connected them both: music. The judges will now deliberate, the announcer stated after the ovation finally subsided. Please join us for refreshments in the atrium. Maya made her way off stage on shaky legs, immediately engulfed by Kim and several other students. That was unbelievable, Kim gushed. You're going to win, there's no question. Don't jinx it, Maya laughed, still catching her breath. She extricated herself from the group, searching for her father. She found him in a quiet corner, eyes bright with unshed tears. Baba, she murmured, embracing him. You came. How could I miss it? He replied in Mandarin. You played just as your mother would have. She would be so proud. I played like you taught me, Maya corrected gently. Miss Chen. They turned to find Professor Hargrove approaching, his usual composure visibly shaken. Professor, Maya acknowledged cautiously. I owe you an apology, he said, the words clearly difficult for him. I made assumptions based on irrelevant factors. You judged her by her uniform, Mr. Chen said quietly, not by her music. Hargrove nodded, unable to deny it. I did, and in doing so I nearly missed something extraordinary. He turned to Maya. Your technique needs refinement, certainly, but what you demonstrated tonight, that cannot be taught. Maya studied him, seeing, for the first time, not an adversary, but a man confronting his own prejudice. Thank you, she said simply. The judges have reached a decision, called a voice from the stage. Please return to the auditorium. The crowd filtered back in, buzzing with speculation. Maya took her place among the other finalists, feeling strangely calm now that the performance was behind her. Dean Winters took the microphone envelope in hand. Before I announce the winner of this year's Hargrove Scholarship, he began, I want to acknowledge the extraordinary talent we've witnessed tonight. Every competitor demonstrated remarkable skill and dedication. He opened the envelope slowly, building tension. The winner of the Hargrove Scholarship, with a unanimous decision from our judges, is... A pause that seemed to last forever. Maya Chen. The audience erupted once more. Kim squealed and hugged her. Even some of the other competitors offered congratulations. Abigail sat frozen, disbelief etched across her perfect features. Maya walked to the stage in a daze, accepting the certificate from Dean Winters. Professor Hargrove stepped forward, offering his hand. Welcome to Westfield Academy, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Not as staff, but as my student. 3 months later, Maya sat in Professor Hargrove's office for her weekly lesson. Review. Your progress is remarkable, he noted, marking her score with precise notations, though your interpretation of Bach remains unconventional. Too emotional, Maya guessed. Bach doesn't require embellishment, he replied, though without his former rigidity. The structure itself contains all necessary emotion. My father always said I put too much heart into Bach, she admitted with a smile. Speaking of your father, Hargrove set down his pen, the Faculty Concert Series Committee has approved your proposal. He'll be our featured speaker for the Music Without Borders event next month. Maya beamed. He'll be thrilled. Thank you. Don't thank me. It was Dean Winters' idea, though I fully support it. Hargrove hesitated, then added, I've been reviewing applications for next year's scholarship. Already? One in particular caught my attention, a young woman from the South Side. Works as a grocery clerk. No formal training, but her recording, he shook his head, wonder in his voice, reminds me of someone else I almost overlooked. Maya gathered her scores, hiding a smile. The last to be seen are sometimes the most worth seeing. Indeed, Hargrove agreed, softly. A lesson I won't soon forget. As Maya left his office, she passed Abigail in the hallway. Their relationship had evolved into something approaching respectful competition after Abigail had reluctantly acknowledged Maya's talent. "Ready for the Chamber Music Festival?" Abigail asked, referring to their upcoming performance as part of a quartet. "Almost," Maya replied, still struggling with the transition in measure 78. "We can work on it together," Abigail offered, surprising them both. "I had the same issue last year." Maya nodded, recognizing the olive branch for what it was. "I'd appreciate that." Outside, the late spring sun warmed the campus. Students practiced on the lawn, music spilling from open windows. Maya joined her father on a bench beneath a flowering cherry tree, where he sat grading theory papers for the introductory class he now taught. "Happy?" he asked simply. Maya watched a young woman in a custodial uniform emptying trash bins, invisible to the students rushing past. She thought of the recording Professor Hargrove had mentioned, another unseen talent waiting to be discovered. "Getting there," she replied. "But there's still work to do." Her father nodded, understanding perfectly. "Then we continue." "Yes," Maya agreed, already composing an email in her mind to the young grocery clerk whose life was about to change. "We continue."